Hey guys, what you see in front of me here is Fractal Torrent Nano, the water cooling build we did about 6 months ago. And I've been using it on a daily basis as my primary PC. Been loving it, with one exception. Because of the parts I've got inside, they actually get pretty hot. That's because I've got 12900K and 3080 12 gig edition inside. These are hot parts, and in a case like this with just two radiators, the 240 and 110, it's not enough radiator space to cool it down while I'm using it at full bore. But regardless, for most games and most tasks, it does really well. So I think it's time to tear it down and prep the parts for the next build. At the same time, I need the 12900K out of it so I can do benchmarking for the upcoming CPU launches. So let's get right into it. What I want to use this video for is to kind of go through the loop after 6 months and see how it's been worn, how much junk there is in it. By the way, this loop only has Bitspower water coolant inside, which is treated, but I'm seeing that the color of it has definitely shifted. So I want to find out what happened. Let's open up and start taking it apart. As you can see, there's clearly quite a bit of dust buildup in it, and that's because the fans were probably running at about 60% for basically 6 months non-stop. I don't really turn off my PC, so yeah, that's fun. For those who have not seen the build as we did it 6 months ago, I do recommend checking it out. It's a multi-part series, and we go through the design and then the execution of the build. And let's just say I've learned a lot of things in that build. Let me move this around and come around to the other side so I can actually have full access to it. I think one of the things I want to do is probably drain the loop first to just make sure that everything is safe. But before we get into that, let me just quickly show you the back. So this was one of the comments we made during the video. The back side doesn't really have that much space when you use cable extensions because, well, they take up a whole stack of back space. So that's something that everybody needs to bear in mind, especially when you put in all the RGB and all the fan headers as a separate two modules. But as long as you don't add extra drives around and stuff, you can squeeze it in. And we did use the little screw up top to just lock it in so it doesn't run away. I'm actually gonna remove the front panel first. So that comes off, and I wanna remove the bottom filter. That'll give me access to this drain port. So I can literally put the little tube this way instead. Let's see the radiator. It's dusty, but it's not too bad considering that we have a pretty hairy cat in the house. So the filter's held up well. We're using a draining extension right here. We'll have this glass container so you can see whatever debris we have in there and how clean the water is. Just drop that in there, perfect that. And for safety, a whole stack of blue roll, just in case. Let's open the valve. And on top, I'm just gonna let the air in. So I have an immediate concern that this coolant looks actually really clean. It has a little bit of tint to it, but it's not too bad. But if you look at the tubes, they definitely had an effect on them. So this plastic was not too happy to have this liquid in it. Which is kind of strange because these tubes and this liquid is both from Bitspower. You would have thought that it works well together. Yeah, we've got to see what's going on. After a quick think, I've decided to take this apart working top down because there will be some water inside both these radiators and inside the graphics card. To take the water out of the graphics card, as long as I have these connections here, it's not going to start leaking anywhere. So therefore I should be able to just work my way down. And the pump is completely empty now, so should be okay. Maybe some bits that fall down, some drips, it's not a big deal. Oh, that's gone loose over time. Wow, that's like really loose. Are these loose as well? No, these are tight. Okay, so you can hear it go bloop, 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 bloop. Yeah, that's definitely not particularly happy about the color. So this probably has water below. So if I need to undo the top first. I can actually undo it in parts. Oh, I remember tightening these up forever. What if I undo all of these and just unscrew this section altogether? That's how I got it in the first place. But I do need to undo these. This is kind of crazy now, actually. Need to remember how all this was set up. Ah. This is still plugged in. Ah, damn it. Huh. Yay. I'm just trying to get my access to these bad boys here. So I should really fix this one because that's definitely not going to be a nice leak if that starts leaking. The one beautiful thing about the whole of this leaking process, there's not really much liquid in there. There's some. It's not like a crazy amount, so it's actually pretty safe. Plus it's not on, so it doesn't matter. Right, so what I can do, that section is now disconnected here, so I can now take this off and take the whole section out. I remember this section being one of the most difficult parts to put in, but I think this is going to be where we have an advantage now. Let me just take out the whole of this section out. Or not, because I now remember that to take out this section, the graphics card needs to come out. But that's okay. There's going to be literally these 3 cables and screws that hold the graphics card in. And that's it. And the only other problem with the graphics card is to take it out, I need to press the little PC bracket button, retention bracket button. And that's kind of deep on this motherboard and it's not exactly comfortable. This reminds me of a game of Legos. For that I need to take out the RAM. RAM's out. Now, below RAM, Ooh, stop being on me. Right. This needs to go back up and stay here. And this needs to come out from there. Oh, it has RGB. Why is it always the cables? Why is it always the cables? I'm just going to undo everything. Let it loose and let it hang out. So this... Oh yeah, I have a temperature probe here as well. I forgot about that. Ta-da! And we freed the graphics card. And it has loads of water inside. And a whole bunch of abuse. Let me just pour the water out first before I do anything else stupid. Bloop. Let's remove these tubes. It has almost no water inside, so it's fine. Oh, you're still holding this. You can let go. So if I squeeze this here, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so for this one, rather than breaking my fingers on this, I can literally go and unscrew it using a screwdriver. Have a look at this. So this Waterblock has got some abuse, which also made it cloudy. Whatever that was, it's not the happiest. Next, let's take out the biggest contraption from the build, which is the radiator pump combo with a bunch of, well, everything else on it. So I need to angle it, angle, wiggle it. I believe it was this way. So push back, angle forward. And Success. And you can't tell me this doesn't look awesome. What do you think about this contraption? As I said, you should really check out the video that we made before. It explains why this occurred. Because in this case, in order to fit everything in, you basically have to make this monstrosity. And I probably would recommend planning this ahead of time. But it worked and actually did the job. And there's nothing that D5 pump can't handle. Now, take this radiator off. And then we've got all the water cooling out. We've got the next radiator off. Just a little baby on, 120 with just a little baby 120 fan. And last but not least, we have the CPU cooler to take off. I should really be taking this off while it's laying down, but it's okay. Hopefully it doesn't just fall off with the CPU in. Well, CPU can't fall off because Intel has a nice retention bracket, not like AMD. And it's not like I drop CPUs while I'm working on them, do I? I love how small this is. Well, that's not good. And screws out. Cooler is off as well. That's the final bit of water out. Even do the little cheers. With the water cooling parts out, one thing I can clearly say is taking it apart is much easier than putting it all together. Because, well, there's just, that's it. But I still got the cables to deal with and all the rest of the components. Cables, well, I need to tie this up and take them apart. But that's a problem for later me. Well, what I want to do now is go through all the water cooling components and see the state of them, all the little gaskets and stuff like that, and see how much wear and tear has happened in the last 6 months. Because I think we can clearly see that the water is not clear. And if you really look closely at the bottom, it has gunk. It has micro bits down the bottom. So I want to see how much of that is also inside the components. Looking at all these components here on the table, taken apart, makes me feel a bit sad for the amount of time I spent designing, setting up, fixing my floor designs. But hey, these components are going to go to good use on the next build. Let's have a look at the damage we got in 6 months' time, or 10 wear. Maybe not damage. But let's start with this. This used to be clear. In fact, this used to be like this. It's quite a difference, even though this is a bit scratched because I may have been fixing my design flaws. But that's a big difference. This looks like somebody was smoking something inside of it. Probably not great. Same goes for the graphics card. Bear in mind that performance has not dropped. Performance was great throughout the whole time. Besides when you play games for a long period of time, just the 2 radiators is just not enough. But other than that, what I'm thinking is we're going to move all of these things away and we're going to take this up and clean it and see if this dirt is permanent or just cosmetic. For the GPU block, to clean it, the first thing we should do is take off the GPU. You don't want to splash it with loads of coolant or whatever else. Just take it off and hide it away. For that, just flip it over and let's just start taking those screws off. With the screws off, this should just pry open. But for those who may have seen the initial build, there are strips of thermal tape behind, and they are holding in place like glue right now. So you need to kind of gently pry open. There you go, bunch of them. And you can see they actually had really good adhesion because all of the components are nicely imprinted inside. You can see here. It actually looks really cool. Yeah, that worked really well. In fact, it's worked so well that this one actually left a bit of residue on the actual components, but it's not bad. And then the board itself. There you go. Very nice. And it weighs next to nothing, I must say. Taking off a cooler from CPU is kind of easy. Taking off cooler from the graphics card is actually very stressful. Shouldn't be. Nothing really special about this. But having exposed chip adds an extra level of just stress. Now for the main show, I need to take this apart now. Specifically the front, I need to take off the front plexi, get to the metal and then work through it. What I'm seeing is I probably just need to take off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 screws. Oh, you can actually see the bits moving around. There we go. Yeah, that's clean off. So, need to be incredibly careful not to destroy this little gasket, as without that you can't make a perfect seal. But now that we've opened this, let me just get a bit of tissue. All that dirt just comes off. Wow, okay, that's a lot of dirt. Question is, what is that dirt from? Had the radiators cleaned before putting them in, so hopefully that's not the case, but yeah, the actual unit itself is pretty perfect. Yeah, it looks like new, actually. What I'm going to do now is just rinse it out, so I've just got a little tray here, put it under, and use an old toothbrush to just brush out all the little bits from the actual plate here. Just give it a little water. Just do a little bit of scrubbing. Yeah, all the little bits coming out in between the fins. And I can see it's basically clean now inside. There you go. Nice and clean plate, to the point where I can just literally just dry it out now. I'm not going to mess around with this now. I'm going to go and wash it under the tap. Same process, just kind of rub it off and just remove all the dirt. Clean the gasket and put them back in. So there's one gasket here, one gasket here. So anybody buying Bitspower block for 3080, this is basically how you do it. Let me clean this and now we can reassemble it. After thoroughly cleaning the plate, you actually see that there is nothing out of ordinary here. Even the nickel plating is still all intact, so it's just a bit of dirt. But other than that, the system itself is pretty easy to take apart. It's sad that I have to take it apart, but there'll be more builds to come. Following the assembly of the PC, we spent some time reevaluating what could have happened. We spoke to Bitspower as well, and we can't actually track it down to one particular thing that could have caused this. Obviously, different items mixed together could have caused this, such as maybe different materials in the loop. Maybe I didn't clean the loop good enough. Also, it could have been some sort of reaction between the cooling and the components inside. Ultimately, it could have been a combination of all three of those things. But after doing the cleaning, I can tell that nothing is permanently damaged, and I'd actually generally recommend cleaning out your loop once every 3 to 6 months. That way, if there is any buildup, you catch it early and it doesn't cause any permanent damage. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.